You are listening to Beyond the Wheel, a podcast about the people and ideas that drive the RV community forward.
Looking to get out there and stay out there? Battleborn Batteries lithium-ion batteries are here to power your RV, marine, and off-grid adventures. Designed as an easy drop-in replacement for traditional lead-acid batteries, these reliable solutions have 2 to 3 times the power, charge 5 times faster, are a fifth of the weight, and last 10 times longer. Offered in a variety of models in unique sizes and shapes, ranging from 50 amp hour to a robust 270 amp hour. And backed by a 10-year warranty. Battleborn batteries are built to fit your needs and power your experiences. On the road, on the water, and off the grid, reliable power is here. Check them out at battlebornbatteries.com.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Wheel, the podcast that takes you deeper into the RV world by highlighting the people, products, and ideas that keep us rolling. In today's episode, we're talking about a topic that hits home for many RV travelers, and that is bringing pets along for the journey. Whether it's a loyal dog, a curious cat, or something a little more exotic, pets are part of the family, but traveling with them in an RV comes with its own set of pros and cons. In this episode, we'll cover what to consider before hitting the road with pets, from campground rules and temperature safety to space limitations and the joys of shared outdoor adventures. We'll also share practical tips and real-world experience to help make the RV life with pets smoother and more enjoyable. So whether you're a seasoned traveler with a co-pilot that barks, or you're thinking about bringing a pet on your next trip, stick around. There's a lot to cover. So Kenny, I guess we can jump right into it. We both travel with pets. I think we've always traveled with pets, both of us.
Yeah, I had Belle before we jumped into the RV and started traveling full time. So Sabrina and I have talked about this in the past. Belle has spent more time in the RV than any apartment or home that we've ever owned.
Oh, wow. Yeah, when we first started traveling, we had two senior dogs. They both passed away. We also had a cat who passed away, and now we have Toby. So we've been traveling with pets. I can't imagine not traveling with pets.
Yeah, this is all I know is traveling. This is all I know with traveling with pets. And I know we're not alone. There's a ton of people in the RV world that travel with pets, and I know that Sabrina and I have been asked several times about traveling with Belle, and I thought this was a good topic for us to kind of talk about the pros and the cons of RVing. And I know we're going to share some tips. I think one of my tips would be, like, right off the bat is, we had Belle before the RV, so Belle was kind of already trained. She was familiar with us. We were familiar with her quirks. I think that made it easier for the RV travel side of things. I think if we were trying to learn how to RV at the same time that we had maybe a brand new dog, I think it would have been really hectic for us to juggle both those things at the same time. I think we got lucky that Belle was already about a year old when we started RVing, and she was already trained. So she knew commands. She knew pretty much everything that we needed her to know.
Yeah, like I said, we had two senior dogs that we had for a while before we started traveling, and they were both pretty well trained. And then our cat never left the RV. She was afraid to go out of the RV, so we didn't have to worry about that. And now Toby, he's now trained. When we first got him, he wasn't quite as good, but we've trained him. But yeah, there's lots of pros to taking your pet if you have one or if you're considering getting one. So I guess the first one is the comfort of having a home on wheels. They don't have to go to hotel rooms or unfamiliar environments. I know Toby gets nervous whenever we go in places that he's not too familiar with, but he knows the RV. And so he's pretty comfortable. He doesn't get anxiety, I guess, when we're traveling.
Yeah, I think dogs, to a sense, do like having that routine and something familiar to themselves. I know when we're out and exploring or anything like that, Belle gets very excitable with new items. Or if we bring her to somebody's house, she gets very excited to see the house and she runs around and she's frantic. But in the RV, she's much calmer in the RV than she would be at a hotel. We bring her to a hotel before we had the RV, and she'd be running around the hotel. She'd hear people walking down the hallway, and that would kind of set her off. You hear our neighbor maybe knocking to get back into their room, and that would set her off. So having the RV and something very familiar for her has been a total game changer for us and our travel. It also saves on the expense of a hotel fee, like a pet fee. Some hotels will charge you $50 a night. Some will charge you $100 for your stay. But if you're only staying one night, now you just paid $100. So it's kind of a win-win. You're saving a little bit money from the hotel pet fees, and your pet is incredibly comfortable in the RV. It really is their home away from home or their home on wheels.
Yeah, and also you save on boarding fees. If you choose to board them instead of travel with them, boarding can be pretty expensive as well. So you're saving tons of money that way. And I know going back to comfort, like when we go on an RV trip now, Toby has like 3 spots in the RV that he likes to lay down, kind of like his spots. And so he goes no matter how long we've been out of the RV, when we go back in there, he knows those 3 spots, and I think that's very good for them to have a safe place to go instead of a hotel room they're always, like, seeking out somewhere that they're gonna be comfortable.
That's funny that you said that he has 3 spots. Belle has 3 spots as well. She's got the front dash, that's her number 1 spot. Then she likes to lay in the dinette or in the bed. Those are her 3 spots. Yeah, it's funny
Yeah.
that Toby also has 3 spots.
Yeah. The other thing is, you have more flexibility in your schedule, so if, you're not having to worry about, like we just talked about, hotels or airline trips, getting places on time. You can be more relaxed and your pet can be more relaxed while you're traveling.
Yeah, I agree with that too, especially the way that we travel with Belle anyway, or just in general in the RV, is we do a lot of like gas stations and Walmarts and things like that, where we don't need to be checked out of anywhere or anything like that. And Belle is just great about just kind of going with the flow. At this point, Belle just thinks everything is normal. Belle is just like, oh, is this what we're doing today? We're going sleep at this Walmart. Okay, let's sleep at the Walmart. Yeah, it's very easy and, like you said, very flexible to travel with the dog.
Another pro, I guess we'll go through all the pros first and then hit the cons. Another pro that I see is you get more outdoor time with your pet. Like this weekend, we're going to Williamsburg, Virginia, and we're going there specifically to go to 3 state parks. Toby will be with us, and he'll get to go to all those state parks as well, and, new smells, new things to pee on, but then he can always come back to the RV, so you get a lot of outdoor time with your pet when you bring him on the trip.
I think Belle gets me actually outside more than I would normally, and she does like to explore, and she sees the world through her nose. Like, even today, I was doing some driving, and when we stop at a rest area, if I didn't have Belle, I'd probably just walk into the back of the RV, use the bathroom, hop back in, and start driving. Maybe I'd go for a short walk, but nothing like I do with her. I mean, we explore rest areas to no end. We have explored rest areas to the point that we found tombstones. We have found little bridges that take you across creeks. She really likes to explore rest areas because it's got to be an area where so many different people are traveling through and they have their pets and all these different smells. Like I said, Belle just kind of lives through her nose or sees the world through her nose. So she loves rest areas. There's usually gardens or at least nice floral arrangements, and she loves all that. Yeah, so she definitely gets me outside and enjoying outside more than I would have ever done on my own. Kind of tied into that, she's a great companion for my drives, especially recently since I've been doing so many solo drives. Like, she's somebody that I'm now talking to while I'm driving. I'll tell her, "All right, Belle, we're almost there," or I'll even though she's not going to respond, I say, "All right, this looks like a good spot to stop for a little while. Let's stop here, Belle." Like, I find myself or I catch myself, I guess, talking to her an awful lot while driving when it's just me and her driving like across the country. So she's been not just great for like getting out and enjoying stuff, but actually even inside the RV while I'm driving, she's a great little companion for me.
Yeah, and we live close to Shenandoah National Park, so we go up there quite often. And a lot of times too, I'll see people with their cats. I know we're talking more about dogs, but even cats, people have them on leashes out on the trails hiking. So It's not just dogs that you can do that with. The cats, if it's a cat that likes being outside, they love getting out on those trails too. I see them more and more.
When we did have our cat died before we got into the RV, but when we had our cat, I used to talk to the cat also. Cats are great companions also. They're good listeners. A little bit more about exploring and having Belle see the world through her nose. I think it's a great way to get a different perspective on things also. Like you're almost seeing things through her experience. And I enjoy watching her kind of get excited for the beaches and the forest. I mean, she gets more excited about a forest or a beach than I ever would. So I think it enhances the places that we go to with her. I feel like it truly enhances the experience having her with us. I think it really does enhance our travels because we're getting to see just how excited she is to see a new place.
Yeah, that's true. And one of the things that I have on the list is that it strengthens the bond between you and your pet because you are spending more time together and they're getting to experience things, the vacations or the trips as much as you are. So that makes it that much better to have a pet. They become even more part of the family when you have them out there doing things with you.
Yeah, you're right about that bond though. You spend so much time together this way. You're right. Yeah, the bond I think is stronger because of it. Another pro that I have with Belle in particular, or probably a lot of different dogs anyway, is security. I think Belle's been like a natural deterrent for not just people, but we've never had a bug problem in here. We've never had a rodent problem in here. I think just her odors keep a lot of natural, maybe not predators away, but I think just her being in the RV has been a natural deterrent for other animals to try to make a nest somewhere or make a home out of a cargo bay or anything like that. But she has also, as small as she is, she's only 28 pounds. She kept a person from entering our RV one time. I was pulled over to the side of the road, adjusting my headlights on the RV. I have a Class A motorhome, so I'm like under the RV trying to mess with these lights, and I hear Belle barking, which isn't unusual. Belle barks a lot, but she was like aggressive barking. So I was like, all right, let me get out from under here. I didn't have Sabrina with me at the time. Let me get out from underneath this RV and see what's going on. And I get out from underneath the RV and walk around to my entrance door, and there's a guy standing on my steps trying to open my entry door. And I said, can I help you? And he said, "Oh, I saw that dog in the window and I thought maybe I could go in and say hi to the dog." I was like, "My dog does not want to say hi to you. My dog doesn't even want to see you. And honestly, I don't want to see you. I would appreciate if you just walked away." And he's like, "Oh, I didn't mean any harm." And he walked away. We were like in an abandoned parking lot. I was just pulled over to fix this light. So I told her that she was a good girl that day because she stopped that, or she at least alerted me to let me know that somebody was trying to like enter RV. I still don't know what this guy was thinking.
Yeah, when we first started traveling, we had 2 big dogs, a shepherd and a chow, and
Big, yeah.
so, yeah, they were good security. Toby, not so much, but he doesn't like people very much, so he if he doesn't know you, he will bite or snap at you, so I feel bad for anybody that tried to come in, but, yeah, I guess with a cat, who knows really if a cat I mean, our cat definitely wasn't any security, she would go hide, I think.
Ours wasn't either. Yeah. I don't know if ours would hide, but our cat, he was too friendly. He would have never he would have invited the person in, and if he could make
Yeah.
him a meal, would have made a person a meal if they could. Our cat was super friendly. Yeah, and Belle's friendly, but she's quick to alert me of things. She doesn't appear friendly. Belle has a funny way of about going to meet people, and it's kind of gonna lead me into another pro is that Belle has been a great icebreaker. Now, this might not be for everybody. This might not be a pro for everybody, but Belle's a great icebreaker in the sense that people want to come over, they want to say hi to her, and then they start talking to us. So she's been a great way to like kind of start conversations with neighbors and stuff like that around the campground and get to know some of the people that are in the campground. Now, if that's not really something that you're looking for, then maybe that's not a great pro. But for me, I enjoy chatting with people. So Belle's been a good icebreaker. You see other people out there with pets and you start chatting about how old's your pet, what's your pet's name, all the usual topics. But yeah, she's been a good way for me to socialize more, and I consider that a pro. I think also pro wise, I think she's been good for my health because she does get me out a little bit more and forces me to take her for walks. Well, forces makes it sound like I don't want to, but yeah. But she's getting me out more than I normally would, and I walk around the campground. I walk around these rest areas. So I think Belle's been good for my health as well. And I think just like you said too, Sean, like you see people with cats on leashes. I see people walking their cats around the campground too. So yeah, I think a pet can be good for physical health. And I mentioned earlier that well, maybe this isn't a mental health thing. I was going to say, she's good for my physical health and maybe my mental health as well because I consider her a companion, somebody to chat with. But maybe that makes me a little crazy that I'm talking to her as much as I am.
So going back to your icebreaker, that would definitely be a con for me.
I was
I
wondering.
yeah, I yeah, that would definitely be a con.
What do you think about this as a pro? This may or may not be a pro. I feel like Belle can sometimes break up the norm a little bit and maybe just breaks up that natural routine and maybe I'm not really sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think having a dog with you and you're traveling, if it was just me, I feel like my travels could sometimes be a little bland. But Belle might need a potty break at a different time, and maybe we stop somewhere that we wouldn't normally. Maybe she wakes me up in the middle of the night to take her out. So I don't know if that throwing that little curveball every once in a while is really a good thing or not. But I would say that she adds a little bit of just to break the norm a bit.
Yeah, I think it depends on the person, really. In our case, all of our pets have basically been on our routine, so we haven't really I haven't experienced that. I wouldn't have even thought about it, so that's a good one to
Mm.
bring up. I bet it is a con for a lot of I mean, a pro for a lot of people.
I would consider it a pro that she does break up the routine a little bit for us, but I could see where maybe if it's a little too much, then it becomes a con.
But going back, Kenny, to what you said about getting you getting you out on walks more, how she's good for your health. That's a reason one of the reasons why we got into RVing and got some vacation stuff that we could go to on a regular basis is because, like, I'm a workaholic, I enjoy working, and so I purposely got into this so I could get away from work and go see stuff, and then having a pet also takes you away from that and gets you out of working all the time, and so I think you're right about them being good for your not only your physical health, but your mental health too.
Yeah, I think so. And Toby, I would imagine too, you do a lot of your work from home. You got to take a break
Yeah,
just because he needs a break.
yeah.
That I would imagine that forces you to walk away from your work for a moment here and there as well, and kind of forces you to take a break from it.
Yeah, for sure. Even just to pet him, he comes
Mm.
over and just wants me to pet him, so
That's all of our pros. I want to put out a quick disclaimer here that we do have some cons about traveling with a pet. We probably have just as many cons as the pros, but I would like to count the pros as 2 points and the cons as 1 point because even though these are cons and we do have a few cons, I still think that the pros outweigh. I think those pros outweigh the cons, even though I feel like it's pretty even in the pros and the cons as far as the amount that there are.
yeah, I think so too. I guess the main con that you have to worry about is sometimes there's limitations on what parks you can take them to, like even national parks, state parks. Some of them allow pets, some of them don't allow pets, attractions, and even campgrounds. Campgrounds restrict pets or require leashes on them. You can't let them, run free. And some campgrounds, I know like I mentioned before, we had a chow and they're considered an aggressive breed. So even that limited us even more on where we could stay because a lot of campgrounds for insurance purposes won't allow aggressive breeds, even though he was like a big baby. But, I think it's more aggressive breeds because of the owners, not because of the animals. Yeah. So we were restricted where we could stay with him a lot of time too.
Yeah, and I think not just the attractions, but even restaurants. sometimes if you want to bring your dog with you to a restaurant and stuff like that, then you're like kind of narrowing down where you can and where you can't go. And also, dog breed matters. Like Belle is not considered an aggressive dog. She's not on any list because she's just basically a big chihuahua. But just because a place is dog friendly doesn't really mean that it's like Belle friendly because she is very verbal. And we wouldn't want to bring her somewhere that, well, maybe people are trying to enjoy a quiet stroll through a park and she's in there and trying to bark and stuff. So just because a place is pet friendly, your dog might not always be friendly towards that location. It's taken us years before we've been able to get Belle to go to a restaurant with us and just calmly sit and let us eat and let other people eat. I mean, it's probably taken 8 years before we were able to get her to calm down enough. Now that she's 11 years old, she's calmed down and she doesn't bark at every single person that stands up at a dinner table or anything like that. So there's definitely limitations of where you can bring them, and then even depending on the behavior of your dog, you may not be able to bring them even if it is dog friendly. It's definitely a really big concern or a big con to think about.
Yeah, that's a good point. The pet may not be suited for the area. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another consideration is space. RVs are smaller than homes for sure. Big pets may not be comfortable in there, or there may not be enough space for you and the big pets, even though I have a hard time believing that because we have a couple of friends that traveled with two St. Bernards
Wow.
in their RV. I mean, it was a big 44-foot diesel pusher, but still,
So
those are big dogs. And then
yeah.
we know somebody else that travels with five dogs. So
Wow.
it's yeah, it's just again, how comfortable are you with your pets being there around you all the time?
Yeah, I think I'm good with just one. And I would say like Belle's a small dog, like 28 pounds, but she is mostly Chihuahua, so she's kinda hyper. I feel like Belle takes up a lot more space than people would realize just because she's got her 3 favorite places, and she moves from those 3 places, like, often, so it's not that she's under our feet a lot, but she does take up space, and then, we need space for her food, and we need space for her toys, treats, and her medication. Finding sometimes in an RV, depending on what you're in, it's like something like maybe a Class B, like a camper van, you gotta find a good spot for, like, their food and water bowl, so there is consideration, and that's for any animal. That's not just dogs. I mean, cats, and then if you have a bird or something and you wanna have a cage, I know people that travel with birds, trying to figure out, like, where to put their cage in the RV that, you might have to remove it and store it because it can't just hang all the time when you're traveling. So there is a bit of, space involved and something to think about with any type of pet. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Another one is temperature control issues. You definitely need to worry
Big
about
one.
those, especially if you're going somewhere where you can't take your pet. You need to really be diligent about making sure the temperature is good. And there are temperature alarm monitors and things that you can get. And it's definitely worth investing in those if you're going to be traveling with a pet that has any temperature concerns, which is most pets, I think, you're worried about temperature. So definitely put that on a list of items that you need as some sort of way to monitor the temperature when you're away to make sure that your pet is going to be safe.
Yeah, the temperature is a big deal. Humidity also, like, if it's getting hot and humid, like, the combination, I believe 85 degrees and 80% humidity is enough to give a dog heat stroke. Like, I think a lot of people think that they're pretty resilient and they're tough and they can handle weather better than us, but, yeah, it really doesn't take much for a dog to go into a heat stroke, and once their internal temperature gets hot, it's hard for them. They don't sweat like we do. So it's hard for them to cool back down again. So yeah, definitely temperature control is a must for all animals, for all animals in the RV. And like Sean said, there are devices out there. We had the company Temp Stick come on the show, and his monitor monitors not only temperature but also humidity as well, and it sends you an alert and lets you know that your vehicle is getting too hot. Because even if you're at a campground plugged in, power goes out, anything can happen. And
Yeah, and they're not well insulated. So
yeah, they're really just big vehicles. They're not really homes per se as far as insulation goes. And that kind of leads me to the next kind. Like, if you are going to go see something or do something that you have to leave your pet behind, I feel like temperature is a big concern, which also makes us feel like, well, we can't go too far away from the RV because we want to make sure that we're in a close proximity enough that if our an alarm would go off, and the temp stick does alert us that we got to get back to that RV and find out what's going on. So you might be limited to just even just how far you can wander away from your RV if you have a pet back in the RV.
Yeah, another thing to think about is you'll need, I think you've mentioned a couple times, Kenny, you need room for extra food. You
Hmm.
need to make sure you bring leashes. We always bring more than one leash just in
We do
case,
too.
something like he's chewed one before. And so we wanted to get another one. Bring vet records, medications, poop bags. And even if your animal isn't comfortable yet, make sure you help them find a comfortable space. And I
Yeah,
wanted to mention for vet records, we use Pet Hub, and then you have them all online. And so every time I get a new record, I scan it and load it into Pet Hub. Then wherever we go, we don't have to carry around all the paper. It's all scanned online and works well that way.
that's a great idea. And speaking of vet too, something else that you need to be aware of. This is more of Sabrina. Sabrina takes care of this for me. I don't have to do this, but she always finds an emergency vet in an area that we're staying at, so that if we were to have a situation, because you're always in a new town and a new place, if we ever had a situation with Belle and Belle, we had to rush Belle to a vet for any type of emergency. We found out that Belle's allergic to bees. We were at a campground one time and she got stung by a bee and her tongue blew up and she kind of passed out. We had to throw her in our car at the time and rushed her to a nearby vet. Everything worked out fine. Obviously, she's still here. This was about probably 7 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. But just knowing where the vet was a big deal, and a vet that was 24-hour because we were getting there after hours. It's just another one of those cons that you have to kind of be aware of, that you could have an emergency situation with your pet and you got to be prepared to get your pet somewhere quickly. So just being prepared.
There are also, Kenny, different vaccines in different areas that vets recommend. So if you're going to be traveling far away from home, you may want to just give your vet a call and say, "Hey, we're going to be going, wherever. Are there any vaccines that are recommended for that area that we need to get our pet before we go?"
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all them different boarding places, different doggy daycares, they're all looking for different vaccines depending on what part of the country you're in. Bell's got a ton of different vaccines. Another con, Belle's not like super messy. She does shed a little bit, but if it's raining out and we're walking and then you bring him in, there's just additional cleanup that happens with a pet. Muddy paws, maybe a little bit of fur, occasional accidents. Belle has like a sensitive stomach. So every once in a while she throws up. She tries to let us know before she throws up so that we can take her outside so she can throw up. She does know when it's usually, she knows when it's going to happen. But there's been times that she hasn't been able to alert us quick enough and she's thrown up on the floor. She's thrown up on the dash before. With the pet does come a little bit of more cleanup.
One thing, if you haven't taken your pet on long trips before, I know it's true for
Mhm.
dogs and cats. They might be motion sick,
Yeah.
and then you got to deal with that. So make sure you test that out before you go on a long trip, so your pet's not miserable the whole way.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I do know a few people that their dogs don't even like to be in a car. It's funny because Belle gets super excited. It's hard to think of a pet not wanting to get into a car, but yeah, there are dogs and cats that do not like do not like to travel. So yeah, you definitely want to. That's something that you need to test to make sure that your pet is going to be okay in a moving vehicle. It's a great point. I just have one more con. This is going to be very specific to your pet. It might not even be all dogs, but Belle, being mostly Chihuahua and being a little bit hyper, I would say that Belle has a bit of a barking problem. I think most people would agree. And it took us many, many years for us to get Belle to a point to stop barking when we tell her to stop barking. When we first started RVing, she would be looking out the window and she wouldn't even like to see somebody else walking in a campground and she would start barking. It was really bad to the point that when we first started RVing that we didn't think it was going to work because we were like, I don't know if we'll ever get her to calm down enough that she doesn't bark at everybody. Like even if a campground is pet friendly, they all list in the rules that, excessive barking is not allowed. They usually say excessive barking is not allowed. So We were concerned when we first got Belle, but after a lot of work and the fact that she got older, she doesn't really care as much anymore. Now she only barks if somebody really approaches the RV. Before it used to be, as long as she could see somebody, she would bark at them. So that's something to take in consideration. Like if you have a pet right now and it's maybe loud, you might want to think about maybe some additional training to teach them, like when, it's okay to bark and let me know something's happening. But when I ask you to stop, you're supposed to stop. And that took a long time. And I will even say, even now, depending on how close somebody is to the RV, it can be very difficult to get her to calm back down. Once she's wound up, she's like on high alert for the next couple minutes.
I guess now we can jump in, and I know, Kenny, you mentioned birds one time, but we could talk a little bit about what I would consider quote unquote exotic pets and a couple of things about them. Many people travel with birds. We've seen lots of birds,
Yeah.
ferrets, reptiles, rabbits, guinea pigs, and I think one person even traveled with a goat.
Oh, I'd
Think they
never
have
heard
like
of
a
a goat.
Facebook or an Instagram, they
Uh,
travel with a goat. So, lots of exotic pets, and you can do it, but it usually takes a little bit more planning. I know, for example, birds get sensitive to temperature changes, and so you need a well-ventilated cage and keep it out of the direct sunlight or out of very cold spots like next to the AC vent because that thing blows. If it's
yeah.
under the main AC, that thing will blow. And then noise and motion can stress birds. So take practice drives to get them used to being in a vehicle that's louder than being in a home. Ferrets, they like to escape. So making sure there's nowhere that they can get out, make sure you have supervision for them and I know I've seen people that have both with cats and with ferrets, they convert some of their vents in some way that the ferret or the cat can actually go outside the RV
Oh, I've
without
seen that.
actually going outside. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That is cool. I have
Yeah.
seen that.
Yeah, so they can do that. Reptiles, very specific temperature and humidity, so you'll have to probably invest in some things that will keep the temperature and humidity right in their whatever container they're in to make sure that they're comfortable while you're traveling. And we used to have snakes, and it's very specific how you have to keep their temperature and their heat regulation because they are cold blooded. So any temperature change really affects them. Also, one other thing, not just with exotic pets and with cats and dogs, like we said, bring vet records and if you have an exotic pet, like you said, Kenny, know where the nearest emergency animal clinic is at each stop that you're going to. But if you have an exotic pet, not all vets see exotic
Oh,
pets.
yeah.
So you have to really find a vet that can see your type of pet and is experienced in that, especially if there is an emergency and you need to get them seen.
I thought you were gonna say, especially if they were a goat.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I didn't really think about that, that not probably not all vets handle the exotics.
Yeah.
And I have seen it, like, almost everything but that goat, I have seen. I've seen people with lizards, I've seen people with birds and rabbits. People are out there traveling with all sorts of companions. It's really
Yeah.
cool. And I think that just shows just how pet-friendly RVing is, that you can do all that with those animals and
And
travel.
you can make it work no matter what the pet is. There's some way you can make it work for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. So we would love to hear from you, the listener right now. Do you travel, with a pet? Do you RV with a pet? Have you found any of these to be true that we just mentioned, these pros or their cons? Are there any cons that we might have missed or maybe a pro that we might have missed? We would love to hear from you and leave your pet's name also and let us know who you're traveling with and what exactly they are. And I'm sure other people would like to see these pets as well and how it's been working out for you.
Yeah, and a couple of bonus tips that I have is use apps that will filter for pet-friendly campgrounds, and then also you can check out some extremely friendly, pet-friendly campgrounds that are more friendly to pets than adults. There's a couple out there that are worth the experience if you are a pet lover. And then, like I said, we had two senior dogs when we first started RVing. And so we had a ramp that we could put instead of the stairs because RV stairs are tough for any kind of animal. And so we had a ramp that we could use just for the dogs to go in and out. And then, like Kenny said, make sure you train them to maybe keep their barking to a necessary time and teach them to stay and come because if they get out, you don't want them running off and getting lost. And then one thing we always do for Toby is we always bring like a bed that he uses and things that he's familiar with so he's more comfortable in the RV.
Yeah, something else that we taught Belle early on that we think has been very helpful for RVing is the word wait. So if we open up the RV door, she will not run out until we tell her it's okay to go outside. And usually that's after we have her leash on and then we can go out. But that's for us too. Like if we were to come into or enter the RV, she knows not to run out and greet us, that she needs to wait for us to come inside because most campgrounds do have pretty strict leash rules. But also, you don't want her going outside and then maybe seeing a squirrel or something and then taking off and then getting hit by a car in the campground. So, yeah, I think the command wait has been very, very useful for us in a lot of different scenarios, but mainly in the RV because you're stopping at so many different places, even just along the side of the road, gas stations and things like that. You just don't want your pet to be able to run out at any time. You want them to be reserved a little bit when that door opens.
Yeah, for sure. Other things is just like you try and save space with your stuff, you can try and save space with pet stuff too, like collapsible water bowls or food bowls. We have those. Julie has a small one to carry on her backpack when we're out hiking, a little collapsible water bowl for Toby. Because, like you said, 85 degrees and 80% humidity is enough to put him down. So,
You got to be careful with them. You treat them well, and they'll treat you well. Well, I believe that's all of our pros and cons for today. We want to thank you for listening. And like I mentioned earlier, we hope that you leave us a comment letting us know how you travel and the name of your pet, what your pet is. Before you go, could you please do us a favor and leave us a rating or review? These ratings and review help get the show ranked and find a larger audience. We'd also like to thank our sponsor, Battleborn Batteries. One of the ways that we protect Bell is with our Battleborn batteries. If we were at a campground and the power would go out, our Battleborn batteries automatically step in to keep the AC running for an additional amount of time, usually over 8 hours off of a full charge. So we definitely appreciate our Battleborn batteries, not just for keeping us comfortable, but for keeping Bell safe. That's it, everybody. I hope that you all have a great day and continued safe travels.
Looking to get out there and stay out there? Battleborn Batteries lithium ion batteries are here to power your RV, marine, and off grid adventures. Designed as an easy drop in replacement for traditional lead acid batteries, these reliable solutions have 2 to 3 times the power, charge 5 times faster, are a fifth of the weight, and last 10 times longer. Offered in a variety of models in unique sizes and shapes, ranging from 50 amp hour to a robust 270 amp hour, and backed by a 10-year warranty. Battleborn batteries are built to fit your needs and power your experiences. On the road, on the water, and off the grid, reliable power is here. Check them out at battlebornbatteries.com. With the complexity of all the systems in an RV, I always say it's not if something's going to break, but a matter of when is something going to break. That is why I think an extended warranty for RVs is so important. We first interviewed Wholesale Warranties back in 2019 and immediately became impressed with how their policies worked, such as you can take your RV to any licensed repair shop, including mobile repairs. They also have personalized service plans, making sure you are getting the right policy for your needs. And if you think your RV is too old for a policy, you might be surprised to hear that RVs up to 20 years old can still be approved for a policy. That is more age lenient than most RV parks I've stayed at. Go to wholesalewarranties.com/beyond the wheel or click the link down below in our show notes to get your free quote today.